My name is Natalie Westfall, and the topic of my informational speech is disability representation in media with a focus on social media activism and television. My self-selected text is The Pretty One by Kia Brown. It is a collection of personal narrative essays about Brown's life as a Black woman living with cerebral palsy. Through her memoirs, Brown shares her journey with learning to love and accept herself despite standards and stereotypes placed onto her. She highlights the importance of dismantling harmful standards and preconceived notions about minority identities within American media and society. I enjoyed the novel. It gave me a valuable insight into what life is like for someone with an identity and experiences that are different from my own. Kia Brown's identity is as a queer, Black, physically disabled woman, and this identity has multiple intersections. And when compared to my own identity as a white, heterosexual, fully able-bodied woman, I see that I am afforded more privilege than Brown because of historic systems of power embedded into both systematic and societal structures in America. In my research, I decided to focus on the intersection of being a disabled person of color. I searched the hashtag disabled and cute page on Instagram and found a creator that particularly stood out to me. Well, a few creators actually. The first one I'm going to talk about is Dr. Aklia Cadet. She's the founder of Change Cadet, which is a consulting firm focused on creating inclusive environments and addressing systematic inequalities. She is also the author of White Supremacy is All Around, Notes from a Black Disabled Woman Living in the White World. Dr. Cadet is a Black woman living with several genetic conditions and disabilities, and she uses her platforms to share her experience and advocate for the dismantling of white privilege and ableist structures in America. Another influencer I found is Imani Barbarin, who goes by the username Crutches and Spice on TikTok and Instagram. Barbara is an actor and writer who uses TikTok to share her daily life living with cerebral palsy, as well as advocate for the fair treatment of people with disabilities. Looking through a portion of her TikTok page, I found that Barbara frequently discusses the lack of representation of people of color with disabilities in the media. This is an issue that had not been brought to my attention previously, and I realized my own privilege in having characters and role models that looked like me in television and books and media of that sort that I consumed as a child. And I realized that it can help a person to feel more validated and connected to society when they see themselves in these stories and on the screen. And then this leads me to my next point, which is the marginalization of disabled people of color within media affects how people with these identities are viewed by both themselves and others. One research article featured in Studies in Social Justice suggests that TV storytelling has a significant effect on society's view of people with intersectional and disabled identities. The article discussed how representation is hindered because, quote, TV has historically needed to appeal to broad audiences, which has likely contributed to a lack of diversity favoring protagonists in unmarked categories such as white, straight, and able-bodied men, end quote. The shows sampled in the study of their representation were picked to, quote, highlight the common erasure of non-white experiences despite racialized differences in diagnoses and access to healthcare services, end quote. These shows feature white male main protagonists, which uphold stereotypes of neurodivergent and disabled people, and a large portion of these shows sampled also uphold stereotypes by avoiding the topic of racial marginalization, despite featuring racially diverse supporting characters and situations. Although these shows do represent the issues faced by disabled people, they still use tropes and stereotypes to uphold an overly accessible life for their white middle class protagonists. Portraying disability only occurring within white middle-class nuclear families erases the nuances of accessibility and privilege within the disabled community. Although these stories are important, bringing awareness to these issues as well as to intersectional identities and their realistic struggles could help to promote change and acceptance. The television industry should work to represent diverse stories and to give a voice to those who might not have one. The research article closes with a call to action for the world of television. Quote, "We also recommend that shows not bracket disability as the one thing a show addresses by reflecting on how presumed white maleness informs the stories being told and by including the stories of other kinds of people," end quote. I think this is a very powerful message, and I think it is one that we should reflect on as a society in order to give diverse voices a platform and to work towards representing and accepting everybody. Thank you.